I never thought I would say this, friends, but here we are. This thing here is my very own set of oil paint. The Modern Portrait Painter set. I know, it sounds crazy. Certainly it sounds crazy to me. I feel absolutely fortunate and I would like to show you what's inside. I want to talk a bit about what makes this set special and certainly different from what you are used to when you're looking at a set of oil paint for portrait painting. And to top it all off, you will not only be able to decide what I paint with this set here, you will also be able to win one of these. But if you can't wait, here is everything you have to know. So this set of oil paint here, the Modern Portrait Painter set, is now officially available worldwide. You can head over to our website and you can grab it there. We're shipping worldwide. Or you can head over to your local art store, and even if they don't have it in stock, they should certainly be able to get it for you. Or you can head over to Rembrandt Artist Paint and get it directly from them. That is all you have to know. Head over to my website, grab it while you can, and then ideally come back here because I'm giving away 2 of these later in this video. So keep watching. And friends, let's talk about my very own set of oil paint, the Modern Portrait Painter set. I gotta say, I honestly couldn't be happier with how this looks. And if you haven't noticed yet, this here, of course, is my painting of Alice in Wonderland that I did last year. And just this thing alone, honestly, puts a smile on my face because it turned out absolutely perfect. And if we take a look inside, the first thing you will actually see is this here. A small mini print of my Alice in Wonderland painting, including the white rabbit. And if you turn it around, you will see that each mini print is hand-signed and hand-numbered by me, which I think is such a wonderful addition because it makes the whole thing so much more personal. It elevates the set, it turns it into a collector's item, it makes it into a phenomenal gift, something that is more than just a set of paint. And we spent so much time thinking about how we could do this the right way. And I mean, not only is this a paint set that I would have loved to have as a young artist, something that creates modern looking paintings, but also Rembrandt Artist Paint this year is celebrating their 125th anniversary. And as crazy as it sounds, I am the very first artist in the company's 125-year history with his very own set of oil paint. And I've been able to see the production from pigment to packaging. I met the people who operate the machines, who make the pigment, who create the paint in the lab, also the people who make packaging, but also people behind the scenes that crunch the numbers. So I am deeply and personally connected not only with the paint set, but also the company and the people behind the scenes. And for that very reason, it truly feels like a very unique and personal collaboration to me. I have to say, all the work paid off and I couldn't be happier. And then of course, the 10 different colors that make up the Portrait Painter set that are hand-selected specifically to create a color palette that allows contemporary artists to create modern-looking paintings. All of these colors are picked for a very specific reason, and I would love to show you now why I specifically chose these colors here and what makes them unique and which purpose they serve, and why this set as a whole is sort of special and probably different from what you usually see. Fun fact, all of these colors here, you can see, were used to make this painting. I really want to show you how these colors hands down compare to something that's maybe a bit more typical and wide known when it comes to a color palette. But before we get there, I really gotta point out some of the more unusual choices that I made here. For example, the white that I chose is titanium white, which in and of itself isn't a particularly unusual pick for a set like this, but I specifically chose titanium white that's been made with safflower oil. The main reason being that linseed oil just yellows over time. It changes your colors, it's essentially inevitable, and when it comes to portrait painting, where you typically use a lot of white paint, you really don't want to have any of that if you can have the option. So I decided to pick the titanium white that contains safflower oil, because safflower oil doesn't have the same kind of tendency to yellow over time. Certainly not as much, and in many cases, not at all. So when it comes to modern portrait painting, this here, in my opinion, absolutely essential. Another slightly unusual and in some cases maybe even controversial decision is to include black paint into a portrait painting set. Now, you know me, I don't really understand the fear of black. For whatever reason, this is almost like a myth that has spread around the art world, and obviously you can create wonderful paintings with black paint. It is absolutely essential in my opinion, because it allows you to create very contrasty, dark, luscious looking paintings, and there is no substitute for it. So in my humble opinion, for my set, a very important decision. And then there are some would say specialty colors that are maybe even more unusual than my previous picks when it comes to a set like this permanent red violet here, which is one of the most beautiful colors that you will find. Or this phthalo green, or this transparent red oxide, which is one of my favorite colors and absolutely essential. No painting without this color for me. There is no substitute. And as I said, there is a good reason for why I chose these specific colors, and now I want to show you how they actually compare to some of their more traditional substitutes. A classical color palette when it comes to portrait painting or figurative art is usually fairly limited. Of course, there is the Zorn palette that is extremely limited and only consists of 4 colors, and in some cases 5, but most of the time you will find something like this here. This is more or less a good representation of a fairly classical color palette that most artists will have used at one point in their artistic journey. Usually consisting of some sort of white, yellow, red and blue. And then you will have some sort of black and brown variation. And very often what you will find is the inclusion of some sort of yellow or green, because these colors are hard to mix when you're working with this here. And in some cases, like in the case of the yellow, it's impossible to get. And now let's see some of the substitutes that I used and some of the additions that I made to this palette to make it into a modern day palette. Because this is not a statement about quality or anything. You can create fantastic painting with these colors, but it means that your paintings will look pretty much exactly the same as all the other paintings that have been painted with these set of colors. And the more limited your color palette is, the more dramatic this effect will be. So if you're working with a Zorn palette, it doesn't matter how great your paintings are, they will still look very similar in terms of color to paintings that have been painted by Anders Zorn or similar artists or other artists that have used similar palettes. So one of the most well-known, arguably, colors is burnt sienna. And there's a very good reason for it, because it's a very useful color, but I never use this color, never. And the reason for that is very simple. There are much more versatile substitutes that you can use. What I like to use instead is this color here, transparent oxide red. Burnt sienna is a very opaque color and not very intense. Transparent oxide red, on the other hand, first of all, is a transparent color, which in my opinion makes it much more useful, but also it's a very intense and saturated and vibrant color. You can already see the difference between the two colors. They are very similar, but the moment you mix white into them, it's gonna be much more noticeable. So as you can see, very, very similar colors, and they can basically be used interchangeably. But the thing is that the transparent oxide red creates much more intense and vibrant mixtures. And since it is a transparent color, it's also much more versatile. You can use it when you're painting dark areas and shadows, and it will look very transparent, but also at the same time very vibrant and intense. And this is not unimportant when it comes to creating very intense, modern, vibrant looking paintings. It will completely change the way a painting can look, and in my opinion, this here is a much better substitute. Then we have the yellow and red colors. And in this case here, in a classic color palette, you're working with something like this. But in the modern portrait painter set, you not only have these colors, but in addition, you have a very intense yellow and an equally intense cadmium orange. Some of these colors here you just cannot get if you only have these. Sure, you can try to mix something that sort of resembles orange with these colors, but if you only are working with cadmium red and yellow ochre, it's technically impossible for all intents and purposes. Sometimes you have the addition of yellow, as I said, and you can try mixing an orange, so cadmium red and yellow here with that, and you can get fairly close to something like this, yeah? But in the end, it just doesn't come close to the intensity of a pure monopigmented color. And that is also part of what makes this set special. These colors are specifically chosen because most of them are monopigmented, which means they are in their brightest and most intense and vibrant form. Because my philosophy is, I can always mix this color here by including some brown into this or even black and dulling it down. And if you do it the right way, you end up with something that essentially looks exactly like what you would get with a typical traditional palette. But you have the benefit of also having the option of having the most intense and vibrant version of the color. Another color that is very often omitted is a green, because you can mix very nice green tones by mixing blue and yellow together. But when they're included, it's most of the time some medium green color that's not really super intense, but also not very dull. But I decided to go with something insanely intense. And then it's totally up to you if you want to dull it down or use it in its most vibrant and intense form. And then there is of course the addition of one of the most beautiful colors in this set, permanent red violet. A fairly expensive but incredibly beautiful color that will allow you to create colors that go even beyond what you've already seen and give paintings this extra dimension that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get. Now, in and of itself, having a violet like this in a color palette isn't very widely spread, but you can use it as it is to create beautiful, intense, reddish violet colors, or you can use it with blue to create these dark purple, violet, transparent colors that you can use in shadows or in dark areas or instead of blue. The same thing doesn't work if you mix blue with a traditional cadmium red, because it makes the paint opaque and almost brownish. And I think the difference between these two colors is fairly obvious. On the one side, you end up with an incredibly luscious, intense purple color, and on the other side, you end up with something that almost looks brownish. If you mix it with white, you lose even more of the intensity. But on the other side, if you mix white into the color, again, you end up with a beautiful, intense version of the color that is unmistakably modern, which is the whole purpose and goal of this set. Now, when it comes to the quality of the paint, I think it's fairly obvious that these colors are absolutely fantastic. You just have to look at them, you can already see how intense and vibrant they are. In my opinion, the quality of oil paint is a subject of controversy to begin with. I mean, most people assume that the more pigment you put in a tube of paint, the higher quality paint you get, which I don't necessarily think is true, to be honest. Sometimes you put so much pigment into a tube of oil paint, you just end up with a stiffer paint that in everyday usage is impractical and unnecessarily complicated to work with. So if you look at my paintings that have all been painted with these exact paints, I think it's fairly easy to see that they look as intense and vibrant as it gets. These paints here are absolutely fantastic to work with. The consistencies are fairly similar across all colors, which in my opinion is a huge plus because I can work with them right out of the tube. In most cases, I don't have to manipulate them too much, which as a professional artist, I appreciate a lot. And the beauty of this is that you now have so many different options. First of all, you can mix so many more colors that you otherwise just wouldn't be able to mix. But also, you now have the option to create paintings that are super intense and vibrant, modern looking, or you can create paintings that look a bit more traditional. This is what I like the most about this, having the freedom and the option to do essentially whatever the hell I want. Except for my next painting though, because that is something that I won't be deciding, but you will be deciding. Which also brings me to the giveaway. So here is the thing. I'm currently working on an exhibition. I got so many paintings here that are just waiting for me to tackle them, and I'm going to work on them over the next few weeks. But I'm going to have you decide which of these paintings I'm turning into a video and which of these paintings I'm going to paint and use this color palette for and show you what you can do with these. Because obviously, I don't just want to talk the talk, but I also want to walk the walk and show you what you can do with these colors. You get to pick from two very different paintings. One of them is this incredibly beautiful and almost classic looking painting of what I like to call Moon Girl. So you got this very classic, elegant looking side profile. There are some dark clouds involved and flowing hair. A very classic looking painting that doesn't come with many surprises, to be honest. But you also get the option to pick what I like to call, for now, Goose Girl. And this is something that's gonna be the main piece or one of the main pieces of my exhibition. And it's inspired by Greek mythology. And if you choose this painting, I'm gonna tell you all about the story behind it. It's actually quite interesting and super cool. There is obviously a goose involved. The painting is much more complex. There are so many different elements to it that would make for an interesting video. And overall, I would say the painting is a lot more modern, and the final result and the final look of the painting will also be a lot more fresh and modern and different looking. But it's totally up to you. Let me know in the comments down below which of these you would like me to turn into a video. Is it gonna be Goose Girl or is it gonna be Moon Girl? And from the comments, I will choose two random winners that are going to get one of these paint sets. And the winners will be announced in the next video. So I'm really looking forward to seeing which painting you want to see me paint. And yeah, it's still a bit surreal that this thing here actually exists. And yeah, head over to my website, grab your very own set of oil paint, the Modern Portrait Painter set, and happy painting. See you in the next video.